I bought my copy of Lego The Lord of the Rings for Xbox 360 at a used game store called Second Age Games. The guy behind the counter looked tired, his eyes kind of hollow, like he'd seen one too many trade-ins from childhoods that people wanted to forget. The case was cracked, the cover faded, but it had that same silver shimmer that always hits you right in the gut if you grew up playing 360 games. Nostalgia, but bruised. When I put the disc in, the Xbox logo glowed green and warm, and that familiar hum filled the room, a hum that somehow always felt alive. Then came the Traveler's Tales logo. The jingle hit, cheerful and glitch-free, and for a second I thought this would just be a fun throwback. But when the title screen loaded, the music sounded off. Like a single violin missing a note every few seconds. There was only one save file. No new game. Just one file, titled Middle-earth, 100%, every collectible, every secret, every red brick unlocked. Whoever owned it before me must have been obsessed. I clicked it. The game loaded into the overworld, the Shire, but there was no music now. The screen was grayish, desaturated, like the saturation slider had been pulled down to 0. Frodo stood in the middle of the hill near Bag End. His idle animation didn't play. He just stared at the screen. When I tried to move him, he shuffled forward like he was half stuck in the ground. I thought maybe the save file was corrupted, so I opened the character wheel, but all the portraits were wrong. Aragorn had no eyes. Gandalf's hat was missing. Gollum's face was just a flat gray texture. The only character that looked intact was a black-cloaked Aragorn, his entire body made of black bricks. No mouth, no pupils, just an empty form with a sword that flickered like static. When I selected him, the music came back for half a second, a jarring loop of the Shire theme, slowed and reversed. Then it cut out again. Every time I paused the game, the pause menu said something different in the top corner. Instead of map, it read, "The White City is hollow." I thought it was a texture bug, maybe a translation glitch. But when I opened the map, it wasn't a map anymore. It was the Xbox dashboard layout, melted in gray, with my own username floating in the corner. And under it, a single pop-up appeared. He's still here. I shut the console off. Waited a few seconds. Turned it back on. When the Xbox 360 logo spun back, the hum sounded different, lower, slower, like it was breathing. Back on the dashboard, my recent activity had changed. Under recently played, it showed Lego The Lord of the Rings, but the thumbnail wasn't the game's cover art. It was the same black-cloaked Aragorn model, standing behind my Xbox avatar. I deleted the save file. Started a new one. This time the menu loaded properly. Happy music, colorful Shire. For about 5 minutes, everything was fine. Then Frodo stopped mid-animation. The camera panned by itself toward Bag End. And in the doorway, standing perfectly still, was that same black Aragorn. I turned off the console again. When I checked the hard drive later that night, the deleted save file had come back, renamed after my own profile. Username, 100%. I haven't played since, but the name keeps coming back even when the disc isn't in the tray. Sometimes, when the Xbox idles, the green ring flashes once, and I swear I can hear that reversed Shire music playing quietly through the speakers. I found the second disc for Lego The Lord of the Rings at a garage sale. At least, that's what the handwritten label said, Disc 2. The real game only ever came on one disc, so I assumed it was a burned copy, some modded version, maybe extra levels. It looked professional, though, reflective, etched with faint concentric rings that shimmered like ripples in water. When I popped it into my Xbox 360, the startup logo took twice as long to load. The sound warped, that usual tone stretched until it cracked. Then the screen went black. No title screen, no Traveler's Tales logo, no music. Just white text in the top corner. Disc 2 loaded. Then it faded, and the game began. It looked normal at first, the fellowship at the Council of Elrond. But everything was mirrored, flipped left to right, like the entire world had been reversed. The characters' voices played backward too. When Gandalf spoke, it was the same voice clip reversed, harsh and slurred, like a prayer being sucked into a drain. Even the subtitles scrolled backward across the bottom of the screen. I tried to quit out, but the guide button didn't respond. Instead, the ring around it turned red, one single red light glowing at the lower right. The game kept playing. When I walked Frodo forward, he didn't move toward the ring, he walked away from it. Mount Doom loomed in the sky like a reflection in water. Every texture shimmered and breathed. The ring on Frodo's chain pulsed like a heartbeat. Then the screen glitched. A loading prompt appeared. Mount Doom, you are here. But I wasn't there. I was still in Rivendell. The camera zoomed in on Frodo's face until his eyes filled the screen, then everything inverted. Colors turned inside out, the music reversed again, but faster now, like it was panicking. All the characters stood still except Aragorn, whose model was completely black, like someone had taken the shadows and given them a sword. He turned toward me and said something backward, but it sounded unmistakably like my own voice slowed down. The Xbox drive started spinning louder. I heard a faint scraping sound inside the console, like something dragging metal against plastic. The controller vibrated, once, twice, then froze solid in my hands. Text appeared in the corner again. Disc 1 is gone. Then the screen went white. For a few seconds I could see faint silhouettes, mirrored copies of the Fellowship walking in opposite directions. Then the image burned out completely, leaving only the sound of the ring's whisper. I ejected the disc. But the tray wouldn't open. The eject light kept flashing, clicking over and over like it was trying to push something out that wasn't really there. Finally, the Xbox red ringed, 3 lights, not the usual 4. In the center of the screen, instead of an error code, a symbol glowed faintly, a single red eye, spinning, watching. I unplugged the console and left it overnight. When I powered it back on in the morning, the tray was empty. But the dashboard still showed a game running in the background. It said, playing Lego The Lord of the Rings, Disc 2. I've never owned another disc. It started as something small, something I almost didn't notice. I'd replayed Lego The Lord of the Rings so many times that I could do most levels from muscle memory. Helm's Deep, Weathertop, Mount Doom, all perfect loops of childhood comfort. The sound of coins clinking, mini kits unlocking, Frodo's little Lego feet tapping along the stone floors. But one night, during the Mines of Moria level, something strange happened. I was breaking crates for studs, the same as always, when I noticed a single gray 2x2 brick sitting behind a wall torch. It wasn't attached to anything, just sitting there on the ground. I swung Aragorn's sword at it, but it didn't break. I hit it again. Nothing. At first, I thought it was part of the scenery, maybe a decoration piece. But the light was catching on it weirdly. The shadows didn't match the rest of the geometry. It looked new, like a piece from a different Lego set entirely, a real one, glossy, sharp-edged, not the slightly matte-style Traveler's Tales used. I shrugged and moved on. But the next level, there it was again, sitting behind Sam's garden in the Shire, half buried in the dirt. Same shape. Same gray color. I walked up to it and tried to hit it with a shovel. Nothing. Later that night, while scrolling through the character menu, I noticed it had been added to my inventory. No name. Just an icon, a gray 2x2 square. When I hovered over it, the description read, Soul Fragment, 0 of 1. I didn't remember unlocking that before. I googled it, nothing. No forums, no Reddit posts, no cheats. Every new area I loaded, it was there again, sometimes floating behind a tree, sometimes tucked in a corner. Always the same perfect angle, like it was watching. After a few days, the game started acting wrong. Background music skipped randomly, and character voices crackled like they were being recorded live through a cheap mic. Cutscenes stuttered, then resumed with every character staring straight ahead at the camera for a split second before continuing. It felt like they were checking that I was still there. I tried deleting my save file, but when I reloaded, the brick was sitting right in front of Frodo's door in the Shire. The item description had changed. Soul Fragment, 1/1. That night, I heard something faint from my TV, even though the console was off. Just a soft clinking sound. Lego studs falling. Then silence. The next morning, I booted up the Xbox to test if maybe my mind was just playing tricks on me. The dashboard loaded fine, but the background image was different. Instead of the green swirl, it was a pile of gray Lego bricks forming a circular shape. I leaned closer. The bricks shifted slightly, pixelating as the image refreshed. They'd arranged themselves into a face. Mine. Back in 2013, I worked part-time at a small QA studio that handled outsourced testing for Warner Brothers Interactive. Most of the time it was boring, hours of jumping into walls and replaying the same levels looking for clipping errors. But one week, our supervisor sent us test builds for Lego The Lord of the Rings on Xbox 360. It was almost finished by that point. We were just checking localization. We got a new build every few days. The file names were long strings of letters and numbers, nothing unusual, except for one. Lord of the Rings _X360_beta_missing cut_v1.0. That one wasn't on the task list. It just appeared overnight in the shared drive. No one admitted uploading it. I loaded it anyway. The intro logo was missing. No music, no splash screens, just the title. Lego The Lord of the Rings in gray, flickering text. The file dropped me straight into a cutscene. It looked like the Mount Doom sequence near the end, Frodo and Sam struggling on the rocks, lava glowing below. But the models were unfinished. Their faces were blank, their limbs twitched at weird angles like stop-motion dolls. Standing between them was Gollum, but his animation was different from anything I'd seen in the retail version. He turned, very slowly, toward the camera. For a few seconds he just stared, no idle breathing, no blinking. Then, without moving his lips, a voice whispered through the speakers. "Do you remember playing this?" I froze. It wasn't the game's voice actor. It sounded like a field recording, like a man standing too close to the mic in an empty room. When Gollum spoke again, it used my first name. You remember? I thought it was a prank. Someone in the office had access to her personnel info. But when I asked around, nobody else could open the file. Their versions crashed instantly. Mine didn't. The next time I loaded it, the cutscene had changed. Instead of Frodo and Sam, there were empty Lego shells, hollow minifig torsos rolling down the lava slope. Gollum was crawling on all fours now, dragging something invisible. Every few frames, his model glitched into a blurred photograph of a real person, thin, pale, smiling. Then came the subtitle, a single line that repeated over and over. Don't upload me. The build crashed after that, dumping me back to the 360 dashboard. I tried to delete the file from the shared drive, but the system said it was currently in use. I unplugged the console. When I turned it back on, a new profile had appeared under recent players. The name was in Mordor. I checked the servers later that week. The build had vanished, completely scrubbed. The only proof it ever existed was the short gameplay clip I'd captured on my dev kit. When I tried uploading it to YouTube, the video processed halfway, then failed. The thumbnail showed a single frame, Gollum's face pressed against the lens, smiling. Every now and then I still check my Xbox Live friends list. There's always one account that says online, no profile picture, no gamer score. Just the name. In Mordor. When you finish LEGO The Lord of the Rings, you can use the character creator in Rivendell to mix and match pieces. Build your own little minifig out of heads, torsos, weapons, whatever. I'd spent hundreds of hours in that menu as a kid, making nonsense characters with elf legs and orc helmets. It was harmless fun. Last month, I decided to replay the game for nostalgia's sake. I booted up my old Xbox 360, expecting the usual corrupted saves and half-broken profiles. But when I opened the character menu, there was a new option beneath Custom 8F. It said, Builder. At first, I thought it was a developer leftover. Maybe a debug tool. But it loaded into a blank white room, no background music, no skybox, just a table with Lego parts floating above it. I could still scroll through parts, but most were wrong. Human faces instead of Lego ones, blurry photos stretched across cubes. One of them looked like a face from a webcam, low resolution, unflattering light, eyes unfocused. When I hovered over it, a voice whispered through the left speaker. Piece me together. It wasn't the game's narrator. It sounded live. I swapped to another head, and the voice stopped. Switched back, it spoke again. You took me apart. I figured it was an Easter egg, maybe a leftover audio test. But when I backed out of the menu, the game didn't return to Rivendell. The builder stood there, a mismatched Lego model cobbled together from human faces, elf armor, and Gollum's arms. Its idle animation was wrong. It breathed. I tried pressing pause, but the menu didn't open. The camera slowly rotated on its own until it faced the model's back. Etched across its plastic torso in faint letters was my gamer tag. Then, the model started speaking again, cutting between pre-recorded voice lines like a patchwork sentence. You assembled me, from what was left of you. The screen flickered. The builder vanished. I found myself standing in the Shire with no HUD, no music, no other characters. Every house door was locked except for one, back end. When I went inside, the builder was sitting at the table, frozen. As I got closer, the camera zoomed in automatically. Its face had changed again. It was my Xbox avatar's face. The model turned its head, plastic creaking like wood under pressure. Then a final subtitle appeared, bright white on black. "Don't delete me." The game froze completely. I had to unplug the console. When it restarted, the builder slot was gone, replaced with a new one named Custom G. When I loaded it, the game crashed, but not before I caught a glimpse of my avatar standing in that white void, surrounded by loose Lego pieces. I tried deleting the profile from storage. The system wouldn't let me. It said the file was in use by another player. The name of that player? Builder. Most people forget that Lego The Lord of the Rings had split-screen co-op. 2 controllers, 1 console, the way it's meant to be played. Except, when I replayed it last winter, I was alone. I still had my old Xbox 360, that chunky white box that whined like a jet engine when it breathed. I wanted comfort. Something familiar. I loaded up my save and plugged in a second controller, thinking I might do both sides of the puzzles myself. But before I even touched it, the game registered player 2 joined. No button press. No green light on the second controller. Just the notification, partner 2 connected. I laughed at first. Probably a Bluetooth sync glitch. Except the controller next to me stayed dark. Its guide button wouldn't even turn on. On screen, player 2 was Legolas. And he was already moving. He wasn't doing idle animations, he was playing. Picking up studs, shooting arrows, solving door switches before I could reach them. He even waited for me at ladders, jumping impatiently when I hesitated. It almost felt like someone was online with me. Except the 360 version didn't have online co-op. I paused and unplugged the wireless adapter just to be sure. The game unpaused itself. Both characters looked straight at the camera for a split second before returning to idle. Then Legolas typed something using the in-game emote wheel, the one where you can trigger preset animations. He cycled through them rapidly until the gestures started forming words. "Come back." I dropped the controller. The Xbox fan spun louder. The music slowed down like a tape player running out of battery. Legolas ran ahead again, this time through a door that shouldn't have been open yet, an unused gate in Rivendell. I followed, just to see. Behind the gate was an empty space. No sky, no ground, just floating Lego models, villagers, soldiers, orcs, all frozen mid-animation, their heads twitching once every few seconds. In the center of them, Legolas stood still, bow lowered. Then, without moving his mouth, the subtitles appeared. "You left the game." "We didn't." The Xbox dashboard sound chimed, the one that plays when someone signs out, but the game didn't close. The split screen folded into one view, centered on Legolas. He turned and started walking toward the camera. I pulled the plug before he reached it. When I powered the console back on, my save file was gone. All except one new slot labeled Co-op Continue. I clicked it. It loaded directly into split screen. Player 1 was Frodo. Player 2 was already there. Legolas waved. After finishing Lego The Lord of the Rings for what felt like the 100th time, I decided to go back to the Shire, just to wander, collect a few missing studs, listen to the music, exist in that cozy after-credits piece. That's what I always loved about Lego games. They let you linger in a world that was supposed to end. But this time, when the level loaded, something was wrong. There was no music. No birdsong. No clinking of coins or villagers humming. Just silence, except for the faint sound of the wind, low and constant, like static filtered through a dream. Frodo spawned near the party tree. Normally, Sam and Merry appear next to you. But this time, he was alone. The sky was gray, not the usual bright blue. The grass looked washed out, colorless. Even the water in the river was still, not animated, just a flat reflective surface. When I walked past one of the hobbit holes, the nameplate above it flickered. Instead of Baggins, it read you. Then it changed to me. I tried leaving the area, heading toward the mapstone that leads to Bree, but the path was blocked, invisible wall, no icon. So I turned back and started exploring the Shire itself. Every NPC stood perfectly still. They didn't react, didn't talk, didn't move. Their eyes were missing the usual black dots, just smooth yellow faces with faint indents where the paint should have been. I hit one of them with Frodo's sword out of habit. No sound. The model fell apart into Lego pieces, but they didn't bounce. They just sat there, unshaken, like they were glued in place. After a few minutes, I noticed the light changing, slowly dimming, like the sun was setting, except it never rose or set in the Shire hub. It just got darker until all that was left were the faint yellow outlines of houses in the gloom. Then a soft voice came through the speakers. Not dialogue, just a single whisper. Stay here. The screen flickered once, like a frame skipped. When it came back, Frodo was standing inside Bag End without transition. Everything was clean and empty, no furniture, no decorations. Just a single candle on the table. I walked in toward it. As I did, the candlelight pulsed brighter, illuminating something carved into the wall. At first, I thought it was random texture noise. Then I realized it was text, dozens of tiny words etched into the surface, repeating endlessly. We built this place for you. Then the candle went out. The next thing I saw was the main menu. Except the continue game option was grayed out, replaced with a new one. Stay here. I pressed A anyway. The game froze. When I rebooted the console, the usual green dashboard glow was gone, replaced by a faint, sepia image of the Shire at dusk. No icons. No music. Just that same low wind, looping. Now, sometimes when the Xbox idles on my shelf, I swear I can hear it again. That same faint wind, somewhere in the background. And every time I walk past it, I feel like the console's fan spins just slightly faster, like it's breathing, waiting, hoping I'll pick up the controller and finally choose the only option left. Stay here. Every version of Lego The Lord of the Rings autosaves. You don't think about it, you just see the little spinning ring in the corner, the quiet hum of the hard drive, and you move on. It's background noise. Routine. Safe. Until it isn't. I noticed it first during the Monhen level. I'd just finished collecting all the mini-kits and was heading toward the end cuts scene when the icon flashed in the corner. No big deal. Except it didn't stop. The gold ring kept spinning. For almost 5 minutes. The game froze, but the music didn't. The flute theme kept looping, a single note skipping every few seconds like a record skipping over a scratch. Then the game resumed, but everything looked cleaner. Too clean. The studs I collected were gone. So were the enemies. Even my save progress had reset to 0%. I assumed the file corrupted. But when I checked the load menu, there were 3 files now, not one. All identical. All labeled with the same timestamp. The exact minute I'd turned 10 years old. I tried deleting them, but the game wouldn't let me. It said, "File currently saving." It kept auto-saving, constantly, even from the title screen. Every 5 seconds, the icon would flash. When I unplugged the console, waited, and turned it back on, it autosaved the moment the dashboard loaded, not the game, the Xbox itself. The noise it made wasn't the usual drive click. It was softer, like whispering through static, too rhythmic to be random. After about a minute of that, the console froze again. This time, the dashboard displayed a single new notification. Achievement unlocked, you were here. Save data created, permanent. I pulled the power cord out. Waited. Later that night, when I turned the console back on, the hard drive made that same soft whirring noise again. I didn't load the game. I didn't even have the disc in. Still, the ring appeared in the bottom corner of the dashboard, flickering faintly, that same golden circle, the one that means it's saving. When I checked the storage settings, there was a new file listed beneath all my games. It didn't have an icon, just the name. Autosave, Midnight. Its size kept changing. Every second, it grew by a few kilobytes. And at the bottom of the screen, under last modified, the timestamp updated again and again, not the time, not the date. My birthday. Every year. The same moment. Over and over. Now, whenever I turn on my Xbox, the light ring flickers once, even if no game is running. I tried formatting the drive, but the console crashes before it finishes. The fan kicks on full blast, the screen goes black, and just before it shuts down, I can see it faintly glowing in the corner, that golden ring spinning forever. Saving. 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 It started like any other late-night nostalgia binge. I wanted something simple, something that wouldn't hurt to play, Lego The Lord of the Rings on Xbox 360. I just needed the music, the old charm, the plastic laughter of a world that didn't mean anything anymore. When I loaded my old save, everything seemed fine. The familiar overworld screen appeared, the map of Middle-earth, dotted with icons. But there was something strange about the character wheel. Only Frodo was lit. Everyone else, Aragorn, Gandalf, Sam, their portraits were gray. I thought maybe I'd unequip them. But when I tried switching characters, the game said, "The Fellowship is currently away." The text lingered for a few seconds longer than normal, like the game wasn't sure what that meant. When the level loaded, Frodo spawned on a rocky ledge overlooking Mount Doom. It wasn't a mission I recognized. The sky was dark, not red, just gray, flat, empty, like someone had erased the texture file. In the distance, I could see tiny flickers of movement, like the Fellowship was still traveling somewhere far below, across the barren plains. I called for them. Pressed Y for character swap. Nothing. I walked forward, and the camera panned slowly outward, farther and farther, until I could see the entire mountain range below. They were down there. The Fellowship. Still moving. Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, Gandalf, walking in formation, their animations looping. Every few seconds, one of them would stop and look back up toward where I stood. But they never waved. Never gestured. They just stared. The music began to fade out, note by note, until all that remained was the sound of their footsteps echoing somewhere far below, muffled like through a wall. I tried jumping down to reach them, but there was no fall damage. Frodo just kept walking downward, step after step, no matter how steep the incline got. When I finally reached the plain, they were gone. Only their footprints remained, hundreds of them, looping in circles that led nowhere. I followed one of the trails for a long time, until it vanished into a perfectly flat texture. At the center of it, there was a single Lego piece, a golden ring, floating, spinning slowly. I picked it up. Nothing happened. Then the camera panned again, automatically this time, zooming back toward the top of Mount Doom. And there they were again. The Fellowship. All of them, standing where I had started. They were looking down at me. I dropped the controller. The screen faded to black, except for one line of text. You left first. The Xbox dashboard came up on its own. My gamertag had changed. Where it used to say my name, it now read Fellowship offline. And beneath it, a status message I never wrote. Still traveling. Everyone who grew up with the Xbox 360 remembers that feeling, hitting start, hearing the soft fade of music, seeing the safe gray overlay of the pause menu. For a moment, you weren't in danger. You weren't in the game. You were outside it. Safe. Except I wasn't. I was replaying Lego The Lord of the Rings again, the Weathertop level, where Frodo gets stabbed by the Witch King. Halfway through, I paused the game to grab a drink. When I came back, the screen was still frozen, except Frodo was breathing. You know the idle animations Lego characters do? That faint bounce, a little exhale sound? He was doing that. While the pause menu was open. I stared for a second, confused. Then I noticed the pause overlay wasn't quite right. The gray was darker than usual, tinted green, almost matching the Xbox glow. The resume game option flickered. Below it, a new option had appeared, wake up. I figured it was a glitch, some debug leftover. I didn't press it. I just unpaused and kept playing. But when I paused again a few minutes later, wake up was still there. Now it had moved up, between resume game and options. Like it was creeping closer to where I'd naturally press A. Out of curiosity, I selected it. The menu faded out, but instead of returning to gameplay, the camera zoomed in on Frodo's face. The music was reversed, Galadriel's intro speech playing backward, her voice drawn out like she was underwater. The subtitles flickered across the bottom, but they didn't match the audio. They said, "You fell asleep here first." Then the game resumed, except Frodo wasn't in Weathertop anymore. He was standing in the main menu background, the same golden ring spinning behind him. No title logo, no press start. Just him, breathing. When I pressed any button, the paused menu appeared again, over the main menu. The options now read: Resume. Options. Save and quit. Wake up. Continue dream. When I selected Continue Dream, the Xbox made that old static pop sound it used to make when a disc slipped. The screen went black. For a second, I thought it had crashed. Then I heard breathing. Not Frodo's. Mine. It was quiet, muffled, recorded, coming through the speakers with the slight crackle of a cheap mic. Then the text appeared again. You pressed pause a long time ago. I shut the console off. Waited. When I turned it back on, the startup sound was gone. The dashboard loaded normally until I opened the Recent Games tab. Under Lego The Lord of the Rings, it didn't say last played. It said paused. And right next to it, a timer counting upward, still running. Completionism used to be the only thing that made sense to me. As a kid, I needed to see every number hit 100%. All red bricks, all characters, all mini-kits. That satisfying 10 of 10 sparkle when the final piece clicked together. When I found my old copy of Lego The Lord of the Rings, I decided to chase that feeling again. One more clean file. One more perfect save. I started with the Black Gate. 9 mini-kits found easily, hidden crates, banners, the usual. The last one showed on the radar, a white dot pulsing just off the map. It hovered beyond the visible edge of the level, somewhere past the lava, like it was inside the void. I thought maybe it was a glitch. But when I rotated the camera just right, I could see it. A tiny mini-kit spinning far away in the fog, reflecting light that wasn't there. Every time I zoomed in, the texture shimmered, almost transparent. I tried everything. Character swaps. Flight glitches. Stud magnet cheats. Nothing worked. Out of desperation, I enabled a modding tool I still have from years ago, the kind that lets you nudge the camera and move models. I pushed Frodo toward it, brick by brick, his little feet scraping against invisible geometry. When I finally touched the mini-kit, the controller vibrated once, hard enough to sting. Then the sound cut out completely. The screen froze. The mini-kit 10 out of 10 banner flashed for a split second, but instead of the usual jingle, it made a sharp, digital gasp, like a file being corrupted mid-load. The model appeared in my collection room automatically. It wasn't a ship or statue like the others. It was me. My Xbox avatar, same hoodie, same face, made of Lego pieces, grinning way too wide. The eyes weren't painted on, they were tiny holes punched clean through the head. When I examined it, the game displayed new stats at the bottom. Mini-kit 10 out of 10 unlocked. You built yourself again. I backed out. But the percentage counter on the save file didn't stop at 100%. It kept climbing. 101. 102. 103. The autosave icon wouldn't disappear. Every second it blinked, I could hear that same gasp behind the menu music, quiet, like someone exhaling into a mic. When it reached 110%, the game froze on a single frame. The model of me standing among all the others, surrounded by hundreds of duplicates, all facing the camera. Their heads turned one by one until the plastic creaked. Then the screen went black. When I restarted the console, my dashboard theme had changed. The background was a shelf filled with rows of tiny Lego figures. Each one labeled the same. Mini-kit 10/10. I never finished Lego The Lord of the Rings when I was a kid. I always stopped right before the ending, right before Frodo leaves. Something about it felt wrong, too final, too heavy for a world made of plastic. So when I replayed it years later, I promised myself I'd finally see the Grey Havens. See what came after the credits. When I loaded my 99% save, the last mission marker appeared at the western edge of the map, an area I didn't remember ever being open. The ocean shimmered silver. The air was still. No music. I sailed there in silence. Halfway across the water, the stud stopped appearing. The waves flattened into a mirror that reflected only the boat, not the sky. Then the boat slowed, even though I hadn't let go of the stick. Text appeared at the bottom of the screen. You've reached the end. The camera faded to white. When it cleared, I was standing on a dock surrounded by mist. A small white ship waited at the pier. No HUD. No mini-map. Just Frodo, barefoot, breathing softly. I walked forward, expecting the usual cutscene where the elves depart. But there were no elves, only rows of motionless minifigures along the dock. Each had a faint blue aura, like ghost studs. As I moved closer, gamer tags flickered above their heads. At first, I thought it was a glitch, old profiles maybe. But they were names I recognized. Friends I had played with on Xbox Live 10 years ago. Some I hadn't spoken to in ages. One who died in high school. When I pressed near one of them, a dialogue box appeared. Boarding. They walked onto the ship, one by one, each disappearing into the fog. The boat never filled. Every time one vanished, another figure appeared at the far end of the pier, waiting patiently. After a while, I realized the fog wasn't random, it moved in rhythm with my breathing. When I exhaled, it thickened. When I inhaled, it pulled back. I decided to leave. But when I turned Frodo around, the dock stretched on endlessly behind me. The mini-map flickered once, showing only a single word where the compass used to be. Home. The sound of waves returned, soft and distant, but the horizon never changed. After what felt like hours, a notification appeared. Achievement unlocked, all aboard. Everyone leaves eventually. Then the screen faded to black. When I turned the console off, the fan kept spinning. It didn't stop for almost a full minute. When it finally went silent, the reflection of my TV showed something faint behind me, rows of tiny lights, like minifigure eyes, glowing blue. I haven't powered that Xbox since. But sometimes, in the dark, I still hear the water. And every so often, I catch myself counting. One by one. To make sure they're all gone. Red bricks were always my favorite part of the old Lego games. Cheats that made everything more fun. Stud multipliers, invincibility, exploding enemies, all silly, harmless things that made the world brighter. But one night, replaying Lego The Lord of the Rings on my old Xbox 360, I found a red brick I'd never seen before. It appeared in the extras menu after I beat the Paths of the Dead. No name, no cost. Just an icon, a plain red cube spinning slowly. When I hovered over it, the description read, "Perfect build." I thought it was a joke, maybe a developer leftover. I activated it anyway. The screen blinked once, white flash, like a camera going off. Then the menu music stopped. When I loaded back into the overworld, everything looked wrong. The colors were gone. Every texture had been replaced with a smooth gray version of itself. Trees, houses, even the sky. The minifigures walked slowly, heads turning in perfect sync as I passed them. When I hit one with my sword, it didn't shatter. It just froze, then rotated its head until it was looking directly at me. The pause menu still worked, but the word extras had been replaced with rebuild. When I selected it, the game asked, "Would you like to rebuild the world?" Yes/no. I chose no. The cursor moved itself back to yes. I chose no again. It moved back. Then the sound started, faint at first, the click of Lego pieces snapping together. Fast. Too fast. The entire world rebuilt itself before my eyes, blocks reshaping, walls rising, the ground rearranging like it was trying to remember something. When it stopped, Middle-earth was gone. All that remained was a white void full of floating bricks slowly orbiting around me. Frodo's model began breaking apart on its own, piece by piece. Each block that fell drifted away into the fog, joining the rest. Then the game displayed a new prompt. Would you like to rebuild yourself? Yes/no. I didn't touch the controller. It selected yes by itself. The pieces returned, snapping together faster than before. But it didn't rebuild Frodo. It rebuilt something else. A Lego figure with my Xbox avatar's head, same hairstyle, same hoodie. It looked at me, then at the camera. The screen went black for a moment, then glowed faint red. The Eye of Sauron, but built from thousands of red bricks, pulsing like a heartbeat. The Xbox fan screamed. Then the system shut down completely, hard power off. When I turned it back on, the startup ring was red instead of green. And the background theme on the dashboard had changed, rows of gray Lego minifigures standing in perfect formation, facing forward. At the top of the screen, where it usually says press Y for game details, it read, "Perfect build active." And in the reflection of my TV, just behind my own head, I thought I saw one of them move. I always liked the ending of Lego The Lord of the Rings. Mount Doom collapsing, Frodo and Sam clinging to each other as lava poured around them, the perfect mix of drama and safety. Plastic apocalypse you could smile at. Last month, when I replayed it, the final cut scene didn't feel right. It loaded normally, Sam shouting, Frodo slipping, but the screen didn't fade to the rescue scene with the eagles. It looped. The first time, I thought I hit replay by accident. But after the third loop, I realized it wasn't me. The dialogue restarted, but the delivery was slower. Frodo's scream stretched like an echo across a canyon. The lava sound fell out of sync, then stopped completely. On the fifth loop, I noticed new details. Gollum didn't fall into the lava. He just froze midair, arms outstretched, twitching. Every time the scene restarted, he dropped a little lower, closer to the camera. By the eighth loop, his face filled half the screen. The textures were breaking apart, bits of orange glow bleeding through the seams in his model. He wasn't smiling anymore. He was mouthing something. No voice, no subtitles, just the silent shape of the words. Over and over, you won. I tried pausing. The game ignored me. I pressed home to bring up the Xbox menu, nothing. The guide light on the controller started flashing randomly, then settled into a slow rhythm, blink, 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 matching Frodo's breathing on screen. Then everything went black for 2 seconds. When the image returned, the camera was fixed behind Sam's head, looking at Frodo on the rock. Except Frodo wasn't there anymore. The ledge was empty, the ring floating where he should have been. Sam turned toward the camera, mouth hanging open, the animation locked halfway between a sob and a smile. The subtitles appeared by themselves. It's still going. The mountain collapsed again. Another loop. Only this time, Sam and Gollum were both gone. The lava froze mid-eruption, hanging in the air like glass. The sound of the eagles never came. I let it run, just to see what would happen. Loop after loop, the world kept breaking down, textures dissolving, light dimming, the camera inching closer to the black sky overhead. On the 20th loop, the screen finally faded to white. Text appeared. Cutscene complete, 0 of 1. Try again. Then the Xbox shut itself off. When I turned it back on, the dashboard background had changed. Not the Shire, not the Eye of Sauron, just a still image of Frodo's hand holding the ring, frozen mid-fall above the lava. And underneath, in the tiny system font used for storage notifications, a new line of text blinked once. Still ending. You never notice it until you scroll too far down. Below your usual save slots, File 1, File 2, File 3, there's a faint outline, barely visible, just a blank box with no icon. That's where I first saw it. File 0. It shouldn't have been there. LEGO The Lord of the Rings only allows 3 saves. But there it was, no completion percentage, no timestamp, just a size counter that flickered randomly. Sometimes it said 1 kilobyte. Sometimes it said infinity dot. I tried to ignore it, but every time I loaded one of my normal files, I could feel the game hesitating, half a second of static before the music kicked in, like it was reading something it shouldn't. One night, curiosity got the better of me. I used a modded 360 file manager to dig into the game storage. There was no File 0 directory. But at the very bottom of the save data list, there was a folder named with my gamer tag. Inside it, profile.xsf, autosave.dat, file0.bach. I tried opening it on my PC, but it wasn't text or hex, it was mostly unreadable symbols. Still, a few lines stood out between the garbage. User found. Last playtime, ongoing. Memory integrity check, failed. Location, inside. I thought it was a joke. Maybe a debug log that wasn't cleared before shipping. Until I noticed the timestamp at the bottom. It updated every second, even with the console off. The next day, when I loaded the game, my normal save slots were gone. Only File 0 remained. It had a new description under it. Continue? When I selected it, the screen turned black. No loading icon, no music. Then faintly, like a flashlight flickering on concrete, the environment faded in. A dark room filled with hundreds of floating icons, each one shaped like a save slot, pulsing softly. They drifted slowly upward into the darkness. Every single one was labeled with a real name. Not gamer tags, real names. People I'd played with. Family members. Mine. As I walked through them, the icons would flicker, whispering small fragments of dialogue from the game, laughs, footsteps, sword clinks, until I brushed against one marked with my name. When I touched it, the screen flashed. The Xbox froze. Then, Through the static of the speakers, I heard my own voice saying, "File created." The console rebooted itself. On the dashboard, the background was gone. Just black, with a small box in the corner that read, "File 0 active." I've wiped the drive, reformatted it, even destroyed the console. But when I booted my Series X for the first time and downloaded my cloud saves, there it was again. File 0. Size, infinity. Status, active. User, me. It started when I was digging through the options menu. I was trying to adjust the music volume in LEGO The Lord of the Rings. The Shire theme was drowning out the sound effects, and I wanted that nostalgic click of studs again. But below the usual sliders for music, voices, and SFX, there was a fourth option I didn't remember. Sound test. I thought maybe I'd unlocked it after finishing the game again. When I selected it, the screen faded to black, and a simple interface appeared. White background, list of numbered tracks 001 to 256. No titles, just numbers. Each one played a different piece of audio from the game. Track 001, the Traveler's Tales logo jingle. Track 002, the Shire theme. Track 003, Aragorn's sword swing. It was kind of charming at first, like digging through a museum of old sounds. But around track 190, things started feeling off. The music cues stopped being recognizable. Some were slowed down versions of dialogue, like Frodo's "I will take it" stretched into a 5-second groan. Others were faint ambient noises, wind, footsteps, static. By track 200, the interface started lagging. Each time I pressed right on the D-pad, the screen flashed for a split second, showing frames from the game, Mount Doom, the Black Gate, a close-up of Gollum's face, too zoomed in to be normal. Then I reached track 223. When I played it, there was no sound. Only silence for about 5 seconds. Then, very faintly, breathing. It wasn't from the game. It was from a cheap microphone, too close, too human. I could hear the person shift, a small click of their throat, a long exhale. Track 224 played right after, automatically. It was the same breathing, this time accompanied by quiet crying. A man's voice, whispering words I couldn't make out, like a prayer looped and broken. Then the numbers started skipping ahead on their own. 225. 226. 227. Each new track got louder, closer. Until track 255, where the voice stopped. For a moment, the interface froze. Then the cursor moved by itself to the final track, 256. It didn't let me back out. The screen went completely black. The number 256 flickered once, then a single word replaced it. You. When I pressed A, the speakers filled with the sound of my own voice. Recorded. Saying something I didn't remember saying. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Then a click. The audio cut. Silence again. I ripped my headset off, thinking maybe the mic had been active somehow, but the 360 doesn't record on its own. When I looked back at the TV, the sound test menu was gone. In its place was the regular options screen, except under the sliders. The new fourth line no longer said sound test. It said, currently listening. I shut off the console. But even with the power off, the faint sound of breathing kept playing through my speakers, fading only when I unplugged everything from the wall. And sometimes, when I scroll through the Xbox's audio settings on other games, the sliders still glitch. Right between music and voices, a blank option flashes for half a second. No title. No number. Just a faint icon of a microphone. I hadn't touched my Xbox 360 in years. It still sat on the same shelf, dust gathering around the power button like a halo. When I turned it on, the fan wheezed like an old animal waking up, and that green ring glowed again for the first time in a decade. I didn't even have a reason, just nostalgia. Lego The Lord of the Rings was still in the tray. The title screen loaded. Frodo and Sam stood there, smiling, the ring spinning behind them. It felt the same. The same music, the same cheerful hum. For about 5 seconds. Then the notification popped up in the corner. Achievement unlocked, welcome back. We've been waiting. I thought it was a joke, some unlisted achievement for returning after years. But the gamer score didn't move. When I checked the achievements list, every single one had been renamed. Is it secret? Is it safe? Was now you remembered? One ring to build them all became it's still here. And there's some good in this world was replaced with there was. Each of them had the same unlock date, tomorrow. I looked at the console clock. It was correct. It matched my phone, my computer, everything. When I tried to open my old save file, the game froze for a few seconds. Then it displayed a message I'd never seen before. Syncing achievements with friends. The list began to scroll, showing names I hadn't seen in years, old Xbox Live friends, random gamer tags from co-op lobbies long dead. Each name flashed briefly, then faded away, replaced by a new one. Until the last name appeared. Mine. When I pressed A to continue, the screen went black. The Xbox achievement sound chimed again, faint and warped. Achievement unlocked, completionist. Everyone's done. The console dashboard loaded instead of the game. But something was off. Where the friends list usually was, there was only one entry. Friend 1. Status, online. When I opened it, the screen stayed blank for a few seconds before text appeared, typed slowly like someone was entering it live. Good job. We saved your progress. You don't have to play anymore. I turned off the console. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a notification from the old Xbox Live app one hadn't used in years. It said, Achievement unlocked, signed out. Goodbye, my name. When I checked, my account didn't exist anymore. Not suspended, not deleted, just gone. That night, when I powered on the 360 again, the green ring didn't glow. It flickered once, then stayed dark. And for a second, just one, I thought I heard it again, the little chime, that happy burst of sound. Achievement unlocked, last player. No description. No score. Just the sound. Bright, hollow, final.